It is 12 minutes past 11. You're listening to Nihal live on the BBC Asian Network. My next guest is Stuart Gatt, who has directed a short film about a British Asian girl who is obsessed with trying to make it in Bollywood. But she's worried about one thing, and that is her dark skin. So, can you ever see a leading role given to someone who has dark skin in Bollywood? And is this preference for fair skin, is it prejudice? Is that what it is? Are people meant to feel inferior because they have dark skin? Stuart, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Nihal.
You're of mixed parentage.
Yeah.
Father Italian, mother from Bangalore.
Exactly.
Tell me why this is an issue for you. Why were you interested in this?
Well, because for a couple of reasons. I think, firstly, because it's something that I was exposed to as a young child, and my family were exposed to that within the actual inner workings of the Indian community. My grandfather was very fair, my grandmother was very dark, so there was a lot of prejudice against her because of that from her in-laws.
Oh, you heard this growing up, did you?
Well, I heard the stories.
Really?
So yeah, so my mum came up very fair, and that's actually one of the characters in the film is based on my grandmother. And my grandma suffered a lot because of that, because she was very dark. And then there was, discussions from the in-laws. Will the baby, when she was pregnant with my mother, will the baby come out black like the mum or white like the father? So she always had this pressure on her to produce a fair-skinned child and kind of remove that dark gene from the gene pool that she was mixing with. But also as well, it's important for me because it's something that affects our community. I feel Indian. I was brought up by my mother. And it's something that I think afflicts people, and I felt for that reason it was something that I had to make a film about. And also, I think for me personally, it was an issue because I feel like skin lightening is an act of self-hate opposed to a preference to a skin colour. And growing up, I was always very embarrassed about my Indian roots, ashamed of it. I used to hide that from people. I just called myself Italian and didn't want to admit that I was Indian, to avoid racism and prejudice and so on. And that then I felt, and when I see skin lightening now, I feel that it's the same thing. It's an act of self-hate.
Because you talk about your grandmother's generation, but clearly because of the film, and it's set now, you feel as though these issues are entrenched in the culture, that it's not changing.
Yeah, I mean, you only have to see if, some of these adverts that come out in India for Fair and Lovely and Fair and Handsome to see it's actually very much alive.
Well, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry,
Exactly,
isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. Apparently more skin lightening is consumed, products are consumed in India than Coca-Cola is, which says a lot.
Yeah, geez.
So, yeah, exactly. So I think that, we're talking about, I see skin lightening now, it's still very much alive. You see the whitewashing of Bollywood and so on, and I feel like it shows that colonialism is very much still alive. Formally it may have ended, but the mental colonialism, the indoctrination of colonialism is still very much alive. And it's something, again, incidentally, I think it's one thing that's important to mention, that this isn't something that's exclusive to Indians.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Look at Vibes Cartel, the reggae singer from Jamaica,
Exactly.
of course, it did it. And Nigeria, of course, is a massive market for this as well, isn't it? This is skin bleaching, they call it, don't they?
Skin bleaching, exactly. I mean, this is something that you see in the African diaspora all over, so the Caribbean, North America, South America, indigenous peoples of South America. Again, it's the same issue with, these are all victims, India, Asia, North America, Africa and South America, all victims of European colonialism.
So what effect do you think it has on people? What effect does it have on the character, the central character in your film?
Well, I mean, she's someone who is a British Asian, born to a working class mother who's disabled, and she's the sole bread earner. So there's a lot of pressure on her. And she wants to escape her working class shackles, and she has her dreams of becoming a Bollywood star, and she's a very, very talented dancer, which would make her a natural in Bollywood. And there's a Bollywood audition coming up that she has to get ready for, but she feels that she's too dark for Bollywood, and she's dark-skinned and won't be able to make it. And she has a best friend who's very fair-skinned, and she has this constant feeling of inadequacy. So for someone like her, Parita, the name of the character is in the film, she knows that she's good enough to make it into Bollywood, but she's got this superficial ailment, and it's dark skin, and that prevents her from feeling like she can make it. So now the pressure really isn't about how talented you are, it's, can I make my skin light enough in time for the audition? That's what the story is, following her as she desperately tries to lighten her skin in time.
Scary, isn't it? It's scary, because I'm not sure, is it essentially sunblock. I mean, what science is there behind this that means that you will become fair? Now, me, for instance, how brown I am not going to become you.
No.
How fair you are. Regardless of how many, the only way I'm going to do that is if I take a bath in Tipex. I mean, that's pretty much the closest I'm going to get. For those people who have no idea what Tipex is, it's this kind of white paint substance that people used to use when they were doing essays at university.
Yeah, I think you're showing your age with that one.
Yeah, I am totally showing my age. No one knows what Tipex is if you're under the age of 30, I can imagine. So, I mean, but people buy into this, don't they? Believe it.
Yeah, they do. That's the thing. That from what I've seen and the research I've done, there isn't anything that actually works. There are some that apparently have been more effective, but they contain like carcinogens and stuff that's going to give you cancer, and they're illegal. And the reality is that they don't. But I think more important. I think the question more important than that is, why would you want to do that? Even if it did work, even if Fair and Lovely and Fair and Handsome was absolutely brilliant at lightening your skin, you've got to really ask what is motivating you to lighten your skin. And I think that's a more important issue than whether
But it's the same thing that motivates a woman to have kind of bum implants and boob implants and collagen and Botox, because it's an idea of beauty. Isn't it?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
I think there's a difference. I think that one is a superficial aesthetic change. So you want to look a little bit more, bigger bum, bigger breasts. The other has come from hundreds of years of oppression and making you feel like you're inferior and you're uncivilized. This is British doctrine, obviously, in India. They described us as uncivilized and black squatting creatures, and that's part of the colonial doctrine. It's the same in South America. It's the same in Africa. It's not easy to conquer someone if they've got a lot of confidence. So you have to beat down people's confidence, reinvent them as uncivilized, and soon you develop self-hate. And that's exactly what I think skin lightening comes from. I don't think that people are trying to lighten their skin because they're saying, oh, you know what, I think fair skin's a lot nicer. I think it's trying to remove themselves from their race. It's the same thing you see across the African diaspora, Indian and South American. I don't think it's so unique to Indians as it is to everyone who's been a victim of colonialism. And I think that if you feel inferior and you hate yourself, you'll try and make yourself less like the race that you've been taught to hate.
Okay, interesting to put that out to our audience, actually. 81869 on the text, or email nihal@bbc.co.uk. Is skin lightening a form of self-hate? Is it colonialism rearing its ugly head again? If you skin lighten, does that mean that you are ashamed of being Asian and that essentially, subconsciously, you want to be white? You tell me, do you agree with that or not? Let's just do it again. It is 24 minutes past 11. So what about those, Stuart, who argue... Sorry, my apologies. I'm speaking to the film director, Stuart Gatt, about his film, My Beautiful White Skin, award-winning film, My Beautiful White Skin, which deals with the issue of skin lightening. 81869 is the text number if you agree that is a form of self-hate and mental colonialism. Two of the things my guest sitting in front of me, Stuart, described. What about this argument that actually it goes way back before colonialism, and it's about, if you're dark, you're a labourer, you work out in the lands, and if you were fair-skinned, it was because you spent most of your time inside, which meant that you were more of an aristocrat. What about that argument, and that it's not to do with colonialism?
I've heard that before, and I think that I do think that argument doesn't carry too much weight. Because there might have been a reality. If you work in the field, you're dark, but I think in this day and age, I don't look at somebody dark and go, "You work in the fields, don't you?" Or I look at someone who's fair and go, "Oh, he's an aristocrat." I don't know how much weight that argument actually carries. It seems like there seems to be quite a few theories that try and distance the issue from what I think is quite obvious and something that has a consistent trend across peoples who have been victims of colonialism. I don't really think that's true, and that may have been some time ago. But the reality is that we see this across not just India but Africa and South America.
And the Caribbean, yeah.
Exactly, the Caribbean, North America, with black people in North America and indigenous Native Americans as well. And I think that, again, there's an argument that's always thrown out whenever you read about, from kind of British reporters, and you read about the skin lightening phenomenon, and they always mention the caste system. And again, another hypothesis I reject, because I'm yet to see a shred of evidence that links the caste system to skin colour opposed to actual ethnic groups and roles. But let's say that was true. Let's say Indians are just predisposed to have an issue with skin colour. It doesn't explain why Africans and South Americans and other parts of ex-colonial regions in Asia suffer exactly the same thing. So we just erase India from the argument for a moment. You've still got all these other regions that suffer the same thing. I think the question really is if you subject people to the conscious inferiority complex that colonialists have put on their subjects, or their victims, I should say, and you look at what's been done to them, try to give them a new god, reinvent them, change their names, present themselves as these superior beings. The question is, what effect do you think it will have on people? And then you check, and you see it's exactly what you expect. People lightening their skin, black people straightening their hair, fair-skinned people running around with blue contacts, and I think that is completely expected, and the explanation is quite clear. I think that a lot of people just try to apologise for colonialism, and I think that's something that's a shame, because
it's intriguing, isn't it, that when you watch Bollywood films, which is the kind of overriding entertainment form in India and across South Asia, they're all fair. But if you go to India,
exactly,
pretty much everyone's brown, and it just seems as though a film industry doesn't represent the people that it's supposed to. All right, I suppose it projects an ideal, but it's very odd that there is no balance at all. All the biggest stars in Bollywood are fair-skinned, aren't they?
Exactly.
All of them. I mean, some people tried to argue to me recently that Shah Rukh Khan was brown. I was like, well, really? By what? If you saw someone the colour of Idris Elba starring in movies, that would be a moment where you would go, okay, you've crossed a threshold now, and now you're embracing people for their talent.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there are plenty of people who, quote unquote, act in Bollywood who are very fair-skinned. There are chair legs that are better actors than some of the people I've seen act in some of those films. But I get that they look good. Yeah. I get that fact. And of course, in Hollywood, it's the same. There are people who look great but are not particularly good at what they do. But Hollywood doesn't have that, does it? I mean, look at the amount of brown, dark Denzel Washington, for instance, who are brown and are huge film stars. But India doesn't seem to be able to embrace that, does it?
It does. Hollywood is still very whitewashed.
Yeah.
It's not as diverse. But, in terms of shade and stuff, no, I suppose it doesn't exist in that sense. But exactly, that's really the question. What would motivate a film industry in India to choose selectively people that maybe represent 5% of the population? I'd like to hear that answer, because it seems very strange that you'd fill it with people that look nothing like Indians. Yes. Maybe 5%. Yeah, and it's crazy. And again, it carries on. It really is just carrying on that idea of creating this idea that white is beautiful and dark isn't. I don't know if you've ever seen the Dole test, what they do on young Black and South American and Indian kids?
No.
Never seen that?
No.
Okay, so it's a test that was first done in the 60s by an American scientist. They get 3 or 4-year-old black children in a room, and they put a black doll and a white doll, and they ask the children to say, which is the pretty doll? They point at the white one. And these are kids that can't even rationalise. This is just, they almost their subconscious talking. Which one's the ugly doll? They point at the black one. Which is the good doll? They point at the white one. Which is the bad doll? They point at the black one. And they say, which one are you? And then there's this moment where they realise that they're the black doll and they have to point at the black doll. They do this in South America, same results. I don't know if it's been done in India. From what I can see, I haven't been able to find out, but I'm pretty sure if you'd done the same test in India, that the doll test, it would come out, again, white is beautiful, white is better. And until that changes, I don't think you'll see people putting down their skin lightening products yet. But it shows how deeply ingrained the idea that white is superior, even to a child who can't rationalise it. Must be so much around them that they identify themselves as ugly and wrong.
Rainer in London said skin lightening is really sad, but there are now even bigger issues, maybe not in our community, but in East Asia, with many people going under the knife to get more Western features. When did Western features become the most attractive? Bollywood is varied. You have Aishwarya Rai, who looks amazing with her blue eyes and coffee-hued skin. Really? What coffee?
I was going to say, she's not coffee skin.
A really milky latte, I think you're talking about. And on the other hand, you have Bipasha Basu, who is equally as stunning with her dark brown eyes and darker coffee-hued skin. Really? I know they always put Bipasha Basu up, but Bipasha Basu, however beautiful she is, and my gosh, she is, maybe she's the exception that proves the rule, because everyone always says Bipasha Basu, but they don't really go much beyond that. But you just have to look at the adverts. They tend to use fairer skinned people. Even on our phones, there are apps to lighten your skin, but not to darken it or to give it a tan. That's Rana's point. Rajesh from Leicester said, Hindi film industry has a lot of dark skin actresses. Shmita Patel, I don't know, Sri Devi, Bhanupriya, Shilpa Shetty. Shilpa Shetty, is she brown? I mean, when I'm talking brown, I'm talking brown, right? Not just wheatish, I believe is the dating website description. Bipasha Basu and Kajal, I don't have any problem or can't see any problem with it. I feel they are more tanned and pretty, says Rajesh from Leicester. 81869 on the text, email nihal@bbc.co.uk. Get in contact with us and tell us what you think. 08459 440 445. But back to what we're talking about now, which is skin lightening, and a film called My Beautiful White Skin, the director of which, Stuart Gatt, sits in front of me. Janak in Northampton has got in contact with us. Janak, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
What would you like to say?
I guess the skin lightening has always been, especially within my family and to me as well, it's always been drilled into me, to stay out the sun, for example. I especially remember that when I was younger. So I think with the culture of it will always be there as well. I think it's more, especially it's prominent in India, but I think it's just as prominent here as well.
But do you think it is self-hate?
No, not entirely. No,
not entirely. Wait a minute, not entirely.
No.
So you think that you think a part of it is self-hate?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. I think it's sad that people feel that they need to lighten their skin, to feel more attractive, or to fit more into society. But to be honest, I don't. Is there any difference to, for example, Caucasians darkening their skin?
Well, it is a difference in the sense that you are not led to believe. There are no tanning adverts on television whereby someone goes to a job interview and then doesn't get the job, goes home, gets a tan, comes back and then gets the job, which is the kind of skin lightening adverts that you will see in India. There isn't a belief that tanning makes you more successful, is there? It's a choice. It's a lifestyle choice. With skin lightening, it's not a lifestyle choice, is it? It's about you finding a partner. It's about you being successful in life. It's about you not being discriminated against. So often people use this tanning thing, but it is very different, Janak, when it's broken down, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Definitely.
So it is very different, isn't it?
I guess so, yeah.
So why do we still do it? Why are we so in awe of white people still?
I think maybe it's to fit more into society, to have...
But it happens in India. You don't need to fit into society if you're in India and Indian. That is your society.
Yes, yeah. But I think when you were talking about before about the caste system as well, I think I disagree with the fact that you were saying that it's not relevant, but I believe it is.
I don't think I did say it was.
I said that.
Yeah. But, Stuart said it was, yeah.
But
go on and explain.
I haven't seen one shred of evidence that links the caste system to skin colour rather than ethnic groups.
So your caste isn't determined of your skin colour. So you can be a dark-skinned Brahmin.
Exactly.
And
still, benefit from all the...
being a Brahmin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Janak, what background are you from? Are you Hindu or Sikh?
I'm Hindu.
Hindu. And skin lightening is important in your family. What kind of...
No. I wouldn't say it's important, but I would say...
But your family believes that the fairer you are, the more attractive you are, right?
To an extent, yes.
Right. And where do you think that comes from? Do you think it is colonial, essentially? Do you believe that as well? Do you think that a fairer skinned girl is more attractive than a darker skinned girl? Be honest.
Yeah, and to an extent.
But why is that? Some people. Why is that an issue? Because you might see a ginger-haired girl and you might like ginger-haired girrs, or you might see girls that are curvy and you might prefer curvy to skinny or skinny to curvy. I mean, why is it any different, Stuart?
I think that it's different in this way. If you're making a choice because you genuinely like the way someone looks, that's absolutely fine. But it's quite different when we talk about the doll test, where from a young age, brown people are taught that white people are beautiful. They'll pick out, I would, you would, our caller would. If they've done the doll test, white would be beautiful, black would be ugly. Yet we're closer to black than white if we're Indian. Mm. So if your choices are now being made on indoctrination that's happening from a young age, that's when it's a problem. So if someone says, I think that white people are beautiful, nothing wrong with that, except if that opinion has been formed through indoctrination and inferiority. And I think that's the difference between, our caller said, I prefer fair-skinned girls. He might just naturally love fair-skinned girls, but it's difficult you just can't discount the fact that from a young age we're taught that black is ugly, white is beautiful. As the doll test always shows, they've done it in the 60s and they've done it as early as a couple of years ago, and the results are exactly the same across the board in every ethnic group they do it to. So I think that's the only time you ever really have to let that be known, is that is a factor that affects us all.
So, Janak, when you see a girl, is it the skin tone that you see first?
No, it's not.
If you were to fall in love with a dark-skinned girl, how do you think your family would take to that?
To be honest, I don't think they would mind as much anymore. I think there was, especially for example, like my mother, for example, when she first came to the UK, I think, especially in India, when she was told that being fairer is more attractive, I think that has shifted now, especially now I've been living here for, over 20 years.
So those attitudes have changed?
I believe so, yeah.
So you don't think British Asians have those opinions?
I still think they do, in a way, because I think that I think Bollywood culture is still prominent within British Asians. So I think to an extent there's influences there as well.
It's a very weird culture.
Yeah.
That expresses superiority based on skin tone, not on your deeds or on your words, your actions, the ability of your brain.
The fact we're even having this conversation is just so ludicrous, that we're talking about judging people on their skin colour. It's so ingrained that we can have this conversation and it's not ridiculous.
And then, Janak, we're always quick, aren't we, to point out when white people are racist to us. And yet white people would never judge us on this colour of our skin, the tone of it, would they?
No, they wouldn't, no.
Nor would they judge us on the caste system, for instance.
No. Because obviously they wouldn't be aware of it.
No.
They wouldn't, for example, see the skin tone, they would see just the race. Yeah.
I'm a living testament to that, because if you look at me, most people don't know that I'm Indian.
Yeah.
People who know what they're looking at can see it, but I mean, most people wouldn't look. I'm half Italian. I'm quite fair. I'm like an anomaly. All of my other cousins are very dark. But even me, who doesn't look Indian, would say I'm half Indian, and I would still get the same racial prejudice as someone who was dark-skinned.
Yeah.
So it's
but
not.
You must tan very quickly.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So if you're in the sun for any amount of time, then you'll tan very quickly, I can imagine. Janak, can I ask you, how old are you?
I'm 22.
Oh, right. So you're young. That's good. I'm really glad that we're hearing from you, because you're young. And it's so amongst your social circle, if you're out at a club, does anyone say, has anyone ever said to you, she's fit, but she's dark, though, isn't it?
No, I don't think they have, actually.
Right, that's interesting. That's interesting.
To be fair, the majority of my friends are white.
Ah, okay. Is that because you don't like hanging out with brown people?
No. I live in Northamptonshire. There's no brown people about.
Oh, right, okay. You need to find some brown people to hang out with, right? Okay.
Exactly.
You need to get on Facebook and start asking brown people to move into Northampton, Janak. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because I, like you, grew up around white people. pretty much.
Yeah.
White and black people, in fact. So it was always a surprise to me when I discovered the skin lightening thing, because I'd never heard it before. Because obviously no white people have got skin lightening creams, and none of the black people I knew had either.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was a surprise and a shock to me. But you grew up with it, right? So have you ever told your white friends about it, skin lightening?
Yeah, no, I have.
And what was their reaction to it?
I think they were quite shocked by it.
Why were they shocked?
I guess I'm not sure actually, but I would assume that it's, maybe they think that it's trying to change my race, if that makes sense.
Right.
So,
which is what I think it is.
Wow.
So maybe if I was lighter, I would be, more westernized.
Right. Okay. So white people were saying to you, so they were actually almost hinting, why are you not proud of your culture?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did that make you think differently about it? Them saying that? Had you ever thought about it in that way before?
No, I didn't know. No. I mean, I've tried the products before, but to be honest, now I think it's more come to more an acceptance than anything else, and I am very proud of my culture.
So if you and your lads go on a lad's holiday, when they're on the beach, are you like underneath an umbrella somewhere? Try not to get brown.
Used to be, yeah.
Serious?
But yeah.
So you'd go on holiday and not want to get tanned when all your mates were getting tanned? Yeah.
But I think as I was saying before as well, I think when I was younger, I was always told to stay out of the sun. But it's not really the case anymore. I think just because
there isn't that much sun around in Northampton, I can imagine, brothers, or in anywhere else in the UK, to be honest, a couple of weeks a year. Happy days. Do you know what? Thank you, man. It's really good speaking to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really good to hear your opinions. Thanks, man. Michael has called in. Michael, hello.
Hello.
What would you like to say, fella?
I'd just like to say that I think dark skin is beautiful.
Good for you. Yeah.
Simple statement.
So can you understand why people would want to use skin lightening products? Can you understand that?
I can. I think a lot of people actually do think lighter skin is beautiful. I'm sure there's space in the argument for that.
Yeah. But that's not something you agree with?
No, not at all. I think it's pretty 50-50.
Right. Do you think, though, that people who prefer fairer skin, it's just down to that's because that's the kind of beauty that they like, or do you think that there's something weirder about it? Do you think that it's about superiority and about colonialism?
Maybe, possibly, yeah. But from what I've seen, I would say that a lot of people just simply like the lighter skin.
Michael, thank you very much indeed for that. Good for sharing. 81869 on the text, or you can email Nihal at bbc.co.uk. 08459 440 445 is the number. Is it a form of self-hate? Stuart Gatt, who's made a film called My Beautiful White Skin. Stuart, where can people see this movie?
Okay, so it's you've literally caught us right at the earliest stages of development. It's literally just finished. It will premiere at one of the film festivals early next year. We're in negotiations as to which one that will be. But people can keep up to date on our Twitter, which is at MBWS Film, which is My Beautiful White Skin Film. But yeah, so people can keep up to date with that. I also want to say a big thank you to Absolute Bollywood, who helped with the choreography. They were there from the very beginning when we didn't have any money, and were helped.
How did you crowdsource it? How did you get the money?
Most of it came out of my own pocket, put myself in debt. But it was I raised some money from investors and so on. But most of it came from my pocket or debt, which I'll work off. But it's an important issue, so I thought it was important that it got made.
Oh, fair play to you, mate. Sean has got in contact with us from Surrey. Hello, Sean.
Hi, Neil. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Now, you kind of stay out the sun, don't you, for entirely different reasons?
Yeah, I'm sort of ethnically, I suppose you'd say, my sort of background is Celtic, and so I've got white skin, red hair. And,
right.
You know, as a kid, I had terrible sort of problems with sunburn, and, you know, I was staying out of the sun, but for different reasons than some of your previous callers have mentioned. But,
were you aware of this, Sean? Because you're not Asian. Were you aware of Asians using skin lightening products?
Do you know, I wasn't. I knew that African Caribbean people sometimes use them because I grew up in a sort of ethnically diverse part of London, so I saw that, but I was shocked at the same time because I thought, why would you want to do that? Because, you know, many Asian people I see, it's just like many white people are very beautiful. Why would you want to modify the sort of beauty that you've got in that way? And I think people should celebrate it. You know, I grew up thinking, if only I could tan, if only I could go brown, you know, but I couldn't, you know, no matter how often I tried, you know, I just got more freckles. And, you know, I was often sort of ridiculed because I was so white and because I was so sensitive to the sun. Now, you know, I'm middle-aged now, but, you know, I can still remember that kind of thing.
That's interesting. Sean, thanks, mate. Thanks for sharing that with us. Love that. Namita is in Holbeach in Lincolnshire. Namita, good morning to you.
Hi, Nihal. Great show.
Thank you. Thank you. What would you like to say?
This show, the topic of yours today, has taken me back quite a few years. I come from India. I've been living in UK for about 10 years now, and I'm a very British skin girl. I would say, in my point of view, I'm the darkest in the family among all the brothers and sisters that I have. I went back to India to attend my sister's wedding about 6-7 years ago with my 10-month-old daughter. And in the wedding, I had quite a few cousins who were visiting us from America and all other parts of the world, and they had their kids with them. And I have an aunt who is very proud of the fact that her kids are really fair skin, and she keeps boasting about it, which is quite okay for us because she's always been like that. And when we were all sitting together, and I was there, and I'm sure she knew I was there with my daughter, interacting with other kids and everything, and she was talking to some other relative and she commented that I thought people who live abroad for so many years must be fair skin, and look at these children, they're so dark. And I was quite taken back by her comment. I wasn't angry because I knew what she's like, but I was quite upset about the fact that she could be so open about her opinion on this.
I mean, to thank you. Loads of texts coming in on this as well, Stuart. Nihal, I know of someone whose daughter divorced her husband because her mother told her son to lighten her on the photos so she could send them to her family in India.
Wow.
This was a love marriage. She met him at college. I'm ashamed to say I have a few friends who have married out of their race simply to fit in with white people. I know an Asian girl who had a baby with a white guy just to have a fair child, even though this guy wants nothing to do with her or the baby. I have a Chinese friend who holds on to a white guy who has a horrid nature. Why? She hates the look of her own race and wants to dilute it and rather date horrible white men instead of good men of her own race. Wow. Gaurav said, I don't know how to say this, but the experiment that Stuart talks about where they ask black kids to differentiate between white and black dolls is not just based on social conditioning, but also on your sensory perception. There is a reason why we consider white as beautiful, and I'm not talking about skin colour, but white in general. White or light colours reflect more light. Thus, we are able to see more of it as our sense of sight, and thus our brain gets more stimulation than when we see... I see you're not having any of that for a second, which is why we generally don't paint our walls black. It is sad what effect this has on our social conditioning, but there is a very strong reason why people tend to get more attracted to lighter colours, and it is important that people understand this biological side of our senses. Only then will we be able to prevent ourselves from being so shallow as to let skin colour define us. Ikram has said, I'm brown Asian, not dark, but definitely not light. As a guy growing up, I've experienced prejudiced jokes and harmless banter because of my skin, especially after being out in the sun or on holiday. I can definitely agree that undercover majority of Asians see fair skin as beautiful and desire it whether they admit it or not. Well, I don't. For example, when looking for a wife or husband, aunties and uncles talking about their tall, fair-skinned children. In college, school environments, the dark-skinned kids always got picked on Asian and black kids. Not in my school. Definitely not in my school. You should have come to my school. I mean, thankfully, I've only really had people and friends who make jokes And sometimes I'll talk over this. I participate, friends taking the mick out of each other. However, some kids got it really bad. It is not being ashamed of Asian, but society's perception of beauty, and especially in Bollywood and Asian culture, all hold fair skin as God's gift. I appreciate beauty in any colour, but not everyone does. That's the sad truth, brother. That's from Ikram Hussain. All right, Stuart, do you fancy hanging on with us for another couple of minutes?
I'm available.
Yeah, is that good? Because I've got loads of texts and emails to read out. And if you want to call in on this, let's keep this discussion going. Is it self-hate? It's interesting that we've had non-Asians calling in. So I'd like to hear from you, regardless of where you're from, what you think about this. If you're a white person listening to the BBC Asian Network, are you surprised that Asians use skin lightening products? And the reason we're talking about this is because of a film, self-financed largely by Stuart, who's sitting in front of me, who directed it, called My Beautiful White Skin. So let's carry on this discussion, because it's clearly something you want to talk about. A lot more than you wanted to talk about UKIP, that's for certain. 08459 440 445 is on this. And emails. Also callers. Priya, not her real name, got in contact with us from Coventry. Priya, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can I ask you why you didn't want to give us your real name?
Yeah, just because I know lots of people in Coventry who might be listening, and I don't know, it just felt very uncomfortable. Because I think intrinsically, I think lots of people are prejudiced against darker skinned people, but they don't like to admit it. And I think it's good that you're having the debate on radio.
Is this something you faced yourself then?
Yes, I'm very dark skinned myself, so that. I've often been mistaken for being of Afro-Caribbean heritage, although I'm Hindi Punjabi. Both my parents are from North India. My father was very dark-skinned too. And even from an early age, I've experienced prejudice from being dark-skinned, from being bullied at school about it. And
is this by white people or Asian people?
No, Asian people. Wow. In fact, my white friends have always said that I have a lovely skin tone, and I think it's such an irony that in today's society you've got Western people, Western white people who spend hundreds of pounds on tanning and going to using sunbeds so they can look darker, whereas in India, and I've seen it for myself, Indian girls, they just want to be really light-skinned, even to the detriment of their own health.
Jeez. How old are you, Priya, if you don't mind me asking?
No, of course not. I'm 32.
Right, okay. And this is something that you went through your entire school and college and uni life, or did it stop when you got to college and uni?
No, I think it carries on. I think even second, third generation Asians, I think it's still embedded in them that, lighter is beautiful and dark is ugly. So, however
is it a Punjabi thing and a Pakistani thing? Because I'm just not aware of it being a particularly Sri Lankan thing.
No, well, I think obviously most Sri Lankans are darker, but definitely Punjabis. I mean, definitely, even people of my generation, boys, and, when it's come to topics about marriage or discussion about marriage, it's very much lighter-skinned girls are considered more beautiful. The mother-in-law wants lighter-skinned girls for their sons because they think that's the best. I have experience of that, and even my own peers say that when they come for marriage, they prefer to have lighter-skinned girls or fair girls because that's what's considered beautiful. And these are educated people, but there's still that prejudice.
Are you married?
Not yet, no.
And do you think part of that is to do with the fact that you have darker skin?
Sometimes I think that, I think definitely, and especially because I am quite a dark, perhaps as much as Sri Lankan, South Indian dark. I do think that, when mothers come to choose girls for their son, they feel that, that's not an option.
Would your family be happy for you to marry a non-Asian?
I think my brothers would be. My parents are very traditional, and they would, I think they would be very unhappy if I did. However, although they obviously want me to be happy, I think personally, I don't, unless I fell in love, I think I'd prefer to marry an Asian person anyway.
Stuart?
I was going to say, firstly, if you're dark-skinned and you are beautiful, don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. The other thing as well is that we've got to be careful making this about an Asian thing.
Yeah,
because
it's not.
Because black people, I've grown up in a black and Indian area when I was younger, and a lot of my black friends, they would, if their friends didn't have really tight afro hair, if they had a little bit of white in them and their hair was a bit soft, they'd say, "Oh, you have nice hair," or good hair, like hair has a moral quality.
Yeah.
Or you're fair skin, your nose isn't as wide. Oh, you've got a nice nose. Or they take the mick out of their friends who had wide noses or big lips. And again, it's self-hate. You've got, Malcolm X said, who taught you to hate yourself? And that's really the question that Asians need to ask themselves. Who taught us to hate our skin?
Absolutely, and I think it must be. You know, I've been listening, and I think this must be. It must be from the colonial era, because you know, for hundreds of years, the whites were seen as superior, and they must have been seen as an ideal, and lighter skin must have been come to seen as an ideal as well, which is why people do it. I mean, one thing that really, really annoys me is that when you watch Bollywood films, the villains are always a lot darker. And I just think that it is racist. It's horrible.
Of course. Those people who were picking on you at school, there wouldn't really be much to tell but a difference between them than what white people were doing in India at that time as well. And it is that self-hate. It's the self-hate from them projecting it onto you. And that's sad that still exists.
These were Asian boys, actually.
Yeah.
Has it dented your confidence?
It did. I think growing up in your teens and early 20s, it definitely does. Now I'm much more, I'm confident with who I am, and I'm happy with who I am and secure. I don't suffer those insecurities, but I do know that somebody would look at me and think, she's dark-skinned. I know that, especially other Asians would definitely do that.
So weird.
It is very strange.
It's so weird that you think that, because I'm just never, ever going to think that. I'm brown, right? And I'm never, ever going to think that. Because I weirdly enough, however superficial it sounds, I judge people on their character. Sorry for being so weak and fake of me and kind of superficial, but I judge people on their character, their achievements, the quality of their conversation, what they say. I judge them on that. I don't judge them on the fact. I've met plenty of really dumb fair-skinned people and dumb dark-skinned people. I mean, and really smart dark-skinned people and really smart fair-skinned people. That's not the judge of whether... No. And really good-looking dark and fair people. I mean, it's bizarre to me.
But I think society generally, not just thinking about Asian or black society, I think society generally, there is a lot of superficiality. I think the first thing that people do judge you by is by looks and by appearance. I think that's to some extent human nature, and skin colour is a massive part of obviously your appearance. And I think it's a travesty, but it's what happens.
It is. Priya, thank you very much for joining us. Who wouldn't even give us her real name? That says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That says a lot. Lyle says, love the show. I'm a white British male who happens to be of the opinion that darker skin is more appealing. I find the paler skin on a person is almost ill-looking. I find the darker skin looks more healthy and generally more wholesome. Just a question of preference. We are looking to get my brother married. He is dark and we want to find him a fair-skinned girl, whereas he is not bothered. Why? Well, if he marries a dark girl, they will more likely than have dark kids. Oh no, my gosh, the worst thing that can possibly happen, Nihal says sarcastically. And then they will have issues getting married. Oh my gosh, really? Really? They'll have a problem getting married to ignorant people, which is exactly who you want to marry, isn't it? Wow. Oh my gosh, our dark-skinned kids won't be able to marry stupid, ignorant people who think dark-skinned people are inferior. How terrible. What you should be more worried about is having a stupid gene in your family, not a dark-skinned gene in your family. Wow. I know this sounds terribly backward. You said it. But we aren't the only ones doing this. No, you're not. Sadly, fairer is more beautiful. Really bad as you should look at someone's piety first, but the reality is different. Anonymous, as you can understand, don't want to come on radio as Nihal will slaughter me. At least have the courage to put your name on the text. Good grief. But I'm really glad that you got that opinion across, because what we don't want this to be is just one-sided, that everybody thinks that people who think that fair skin... You're laying it out there and going, look, this is the reality. It's
the reality, yeah.
But we want to question that reality.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is beauty is a set of ideals. And who set the ideals? That's the question that Indian people really need to ask, and black people, and South American, and every other Asian, or anyone who suffers with dark skin. Who set the ideals that we're judging ourselves by? And if we start asking that, and were those ideals set out of hatred and out of oppression, then I think that we should reject those ideals as Asians and blacks and South Americans and not accept them and perpetuate this idea that's come from people who were negative and hateful. Remember, since 1947, the British had a monopoly on how India was presented. They presented it as savages and beasts and dark, squatting creatures, and we have to free ourselves from those kind of stereotypes.
Okay, let's speak to Vivek, who's in Northern Ireland. Vivek, hello.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. Now, this is something you've faced yourself personally, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, being an Asian in Northern Ireland is a lot more difficult than being an Asian on the mainland.
I can imagine.
And I mean, my early, formative school years, I was the only Asian, Indian, Chinese, whatever else, person in the secondary school that I was attending. And, I made friends, but there were also a small minority of bullies, of racists who actually made my life hell. And basically, from there, I developed anorexia, bulimia, that type of stuff, and psychological problems, and that really hasn't really gone away. So, the fact that you are a different person, a different color, a different, just different in a group, it can actually be very detrimental. Obviously, I'm coping with it now. I'm getting counselling, and but it hasn't been easy for me, my family. I've married a lovely girl from Bradford. I've got 2 lovely girls, and but the legacy still goes on, and I believe that it's all down to education. And in this country, unfortunately, there's a lack of education that actually teaches people that people are different. People are different colours, are different creeds, are different colour. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all breathe the same air. We've all got blood in our veins. We all have to eat. We all have to reproduce, etc., etc. But I think there's, and obviously being in Northern Ireland, it's doubly important here because at the end of the day, people are fighting each other over religious things, as opposed to caste, or colour. But now that's changing because obviously with the with the ceasefire. The different sides are fighting against.
Vivek, can I ask you?
Yeah.
Were you concerned about who you married because of what you'd been through, and were you concerned about how your kids might be treated because of what you'd gone through?
Well, no, because I always wanted to get married to an Indian girl. And that was,
And was skin colour an issue at all for you?
Skin colour was never an issue. The issue there was I wanted to marry a girl from India, an Indian girl who, basically understood my ideas, traditions, also religion, food, culture. Because to be quite honest with you, I have people in my family who have married. Mixed marriages, but to be honest with you, I think it's more difficult to try and pass on your traditions and cultures and things like that whenever you've already got a hurdle, shall we say? So that's why it's very important to me that we teach our girls that. They're individuals. They're Indian. They're basically Anglo-Irish Indians,
and they should be proud of who they are.
Should be proud of who they are.
Yeah, regardless of
the best of all the worlds. Obviously, respect people. I mean, the thing is, right? I mean, what's right and wrong these days? I mean, some people are saying this is right, that's right, but basically, what's right and wrong is treat people how you want to be treated yourself.
A very simple concept, but a very
simple concept. But people forget that. I mean,
they do. They do.
Fanatical people are saying, well, if you're not one of us, then we're going to kill you. Et cetera, et cetera.
You know what, Vivek, unfortunately we have run out of time with this, but thank you very much indeed for joining us and admitting to that. Look how that affected him. It led to him having an eating disorder because of this stress that he was placed under, just because of the skin. Now, when people compare, well, it's no different to tanning.
Exactly.
There's not many people, white people, who just because they're white, they've been bullied to the extent because of their whiteness.
I think Asians listening to that story who do have these prejudices against skin colour should really listen to that and ask themselves, how different am I from those kids that were bullying him?
And how different are you from racists?
That's the point, exactly.
Yeah, how different
because
are you
people
from...
think you can't be racist against your own... That's the worst kind of racism. Self-hate.
I have fair skin, says Jigs. But I dream of having tan skin and look forward to going in the sun. Raj said, has your guest looked into the obsession of China, where being extremely pale is a sign of beauty? I do not think this is just an issue in India. Well, we didn't say it was.
No, that's the
he didn't
point.
say it was. But rather expression of labourer versus aristocrat. Old masters' wives would carry umbrellas, not only to protect themselves from the sun, but also to remain pale, which was a sign of beauty as well as being slightly larger. Cultures change, but unfortunately for India, this is taking a lot longer and may take several generations to change. Manj in Glasgow said, do you know what my gran used to say when being fair-skinned was... Do you know what my gran used to say when being fair-skinned was better being dark-skinned? I asked her why that was. She said dark-skinned people were more clever, more cunning and sly than fair-skinned. Weird. Dibjani said, I've been hearing the discussion on skin colour. It is a notion that is entrenched in the Indian mentality far longer than colonialism. I think it comes from the concept of Aryans are a better, stronger, more beautiful race than the indigenous Dravidians. Even in days of Ramayan, Ram is depicted as the fair, strong god-like human, while Ravan is dark, monstrous, 10-headed devil. But you can always say that colonialism by the British, again a fairer race, has re-entrenched the idea. Nisha, last text because we've run out of time, said basically Indians with lighter skin stand out in the crowd from all other darker skinned Indians, therefore eyes are automatically drawn to them. Personally, I have seen many more attractive people with better features amongst darker skinned Indians. Many lighter skinned Indians' only redeeming feature is the colour of their skin. That is why I'm baffled at what others see and wonder why others don't see what I see. Indians need to wisen up and be proud of what they are. My apologies to Rekha and Count Z and countless other people that got in contact with us. They are real, the Don in Nottingham. Unfortunately, we didn't have time. Where can people find out more about the film, My Beautiful White Skin?
At the moment, Twitter, at MBWS Film. Keep up to date, and then from that point on, you'll be able to know what's going on with the film.
Perfect. Stuart, thank you very much for coming in. And, of course, setting off a very important debate about Skin Lightening. Stuart, thank you.
Nihal on BBC Asian Network.